You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, and co-host, Keelan Harvey on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage experts, Tina Mitchell and Keelan Harvey.
You're listening to The Money Hour at 1150 AM KKNW, the Friday, June 26th virtual show. Because of COVID-19, our show is temporarily gone virtually. You can also catch us on air on Saturday at 3 p.m. and a rebroadcast on Sunday at 8 p.m. also on podcast. I'm your host, Tina Mitchell.
And your co-host, Keelan Harvey.
It is a great day to talk about money, and that's what the show is all about, how to make money, save money, so you can have a better quality of life for you and your family. If you're listening to our show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but we're here to connect you with the guests that we have on the show. You can call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150, or go online at themoneyhour.com. And now in studio, we have Doug Peterson of Get Priorities Straight. Where does all your money go? Right here on 1150 AM KKNW. Welcome, Doug, to the show.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you back. And a little bit about Doug. Doug found a passion for owning his own business at a young age and has done ever since. In 2001, Doug began coaching and mentoring high-income earners to improve business results and find more satisfaction in life. While Doug has experienced the fruits of success, life hasn't been without the bitter taste of occasional failures. At this stage of life, Doug has noticed an opportunity to make bigger, lasting differences in lives of his clients. Doug created GPS to help navigate his clients safely through some of life's challenges.
So, Doug, I'm curious. You're the money man, and I wanted to ask you: do you think that people know where their money's spent? I know from my experience, I was in the finance business, helping people save for retirement. I used to call it the washer machine effect, where it just kind of goes in the same account, gets flopped around, and they have no idea what's going on. But there's some great strategies you can help yourself with that. What's your experience with people and their money and being spent and being knowledgeable about where the heck they spent it?
Well, it's interesting how much people realize is going out when they think, gosh, I'm making $15,000 and I'm spending 10, but I don't have another $60,000 in my bank account for the extra 5. But we did go on vacation and we did buy a car. And the financial industry, the marketing industry, has done a great job at making it really easy to extract money from people without them knowing. Whether it's subscriptions or Amazon, if you look at your Amazon statement, it says Amazon every time. You don't know where it went. So typically I find people are about 50% low on knowing where their money goes. It's that is crazy, Doug. And they say buy stuff with cash, and then you'll definitely save from a lot of that spending. So, Doug, let's go into sharing a little bit of why that is. Well, I mentioned a little bit about how the subscriptions and things that come through on credit cards you don't know about can play into it. But one of the biggest factors is infrequent expenses. People rarely look at a Zoom subscription and say it's $15 a month, and they don't set aside $15. But if you have 20 subscriptions and you're spending $800 a month on average, if you average out the whole year, you better be setting aside $800 because you're going to get some big hits. Now, let's say half of those hit at once. That's $4,800 against your income that you didn't plan on if they all hit at the same month. Now, it's amazing to me how many people say, oh my gosh, it's almost Christmas. Like, it didn't happen last year. And we didn't have car repairs last year. And we didn't have home repairs last year. And we didn't have umbrella insurance last year. When you add up all the infrequent expenses, there's usually about 15 to 20 that you need to be setting aside money for every month so that you don't have any problem at all when that payment comes up.
Yeah, and I'm always Victoria is going through all of the annual subscriptions. I've got multiple businesses, and there's subscriptions going out everywhere. And I'm a high technology believer in automation, and so she's always going through and just checking to make sure we're using all of them, because those subscriptions can they just come right out, and you don't even notice sometimes what's going on. So yeah.
So awareness is key. It's understanding where it's going, and it doesn't matter what you spend. It matters, do you want it? Do you need it? Does this fund the lifestyle you want, the business you want? And then brutally cut stuff you just don't care about.
That makes a lot of sense. In the mortgage business, we look at a lot of debt, Doug. So, and I know people have difficult time keeping track, because I would imagine, just like subscriptions, your debt could add up too, especially with credit cards and things like that. It's easy to spend money that's not coming out of your bank account sometimes. So what are your thoughts on debt, and is that equally as big of an issue?
Debt can be a real shame thing for people, and it has nothing to do with intelligence. Stuff happens. We have perfect storms. We have kids going to college, then we break our hip, then we get a huge life tax bill. That's one of my clients. And all of a sudden, it put them way behind. And people don't like to look at it. People don't like to deal with it. And there are, I would say most people, again, are somewhere between 30 and 50% of what they owe. They just don't pay attention to it. And the credit card business has done a great job in telling us, you have money you can spend. You don't. You have debt you can incur, but you have to pay it all back. And so many people just really don't know how much they have.
So let's talk about, people having plans to get out of debt. What does that look like, Doug?
Well, so often I don't sell any products, and I don't do wealth management. I don't do investment planning, and I don't do financial planning. But what I do is help people come up with a strategy. And people talk about the snowball debt approach of Ramsey, where you pay the smallest one. People talk about go after your highest interest rate and start paying that down. So often that your debt is first of all, if your credit utilization is high, your credit score is going to be low. So it's a phased approach. I've worked with clients in helping them first get borrow money against their 401k. Now it becomes a secured debt. Your credit score starts shooting up. They may have equity in their house. We get a HELOC. Then their credit score shoots up more because it's secured. Then we go back and refinance the house, like I'm just doing with you right now, Tina. We've taken people from 25 and 28% with 98% credit utilization down to 2.7% with 1% utilization, saving $20,000, $30,000 a year. These are smart people. It's just people haven't learned what questions to ask, and they just don't know what skills, how to approach it. And it's not a one answer. It's not a one and done. Go get a HELOC and consolidate your debt. You have to not keep going into debt. So helping people manage that cash flow helps them stay out of debt, but we need a strategy to stay out of debt. And then once you do all that refinancing, to pay off all that debt. You know how nice it is not having debt? It's really nice.
Yeah, one of the things that we run into a lot, obviously, if you have a balance on your credit card less than 30%, your credit card is going to be improving month after month. People don't realize that fact. The other one that we bump into a lot is people don't know when their debt or credit cards actually report to the creditors. They think if I spend my money from the 1st to the 30th and pay it off on the 30th, I'm good to go. Well, if your credit card reports on the 24th and you're above 30%, you've now damaged your credit. And even the savviest people that I've met had no clue about that. And for years are damaging their credit just on how they're managing their debt alone, even when they pay off their credit cards. So those are the things.
The great news though is that's the easiest thing for us to fix, right? Somebody's credit ratio, their percentage. As long as you got the money to pay it down, do a rapid rescore and immediately see the impact on your credit score. So that's one thing people can get out of. There's other things like closing down credit cards. They're done. I mean, there's no recovering from that in the short term.
Yeah. So, Doug, what else? I was just going to ask. You're probably going to lead right into it. What else you could add on how you think credit affects debt, or debt affects credit, I should say?
Well, again, you just need to understand that credit scores have to do with how well you manage debt, not if you can pay it back. It's just how well you manage debt. So if you have everything below 30%, but your son or daughter is a signer on your account and they're using a credit card and they max it out, your credit score is going to drop 30, 40 points just from that. So it's utilization across each card and across all the cards. So you need to make sure every card is below 30%. And of course, you're probably paying somewhere between 16 and 29% interest, which if you're willing to give me that, maybe I'll loan you the money. But that's a lot of money to pay for interest when you're getting in your checking account, maybe 0.5% or 1% or 1.5%. It's just really, when you think about it logically, it's not logical at all.
So, Doug, I would love to share some other strategies on interest rates and increasing their credit score.
Okay, so there's one thing I did want to share. One strategy very specifically that we did was we started looking at how can we get secured debt instead of unsecured debt, which is easier to get, even if your credit score is harder because it's lower because it's secured. How we can then increase the credit score. And I often go out, and again, I'm going to say this very carefully, we want to make sure people don't repeat. And so many people will refinance and then they'll repeat and they'll go into more debt. So keep in mind now, we've got a system in place in addition to this strategy to no longer go into debt. You're living on what you have by giving every dollar a job and only spending money you have. Then we go out and get zero interest credit cards, which have a 3% upfront fee, and that averages to 2% a year. So imagine taking a 25% debt, taking a 3% hit the first month, but having zero interest for 18 months. Now we've taken, if it's a $10,000 credit card at 22%, we've taken 20%, $2,000 we would have paid in interest, and we're only paying 2% or $200. So $1,800 goes more to principal. But like you said, I've got to look at all the numbers. I got to look at the scenario. I got to understand, and you have to, or someone comes beside you and understand really what you're trying to accomplish. Sometimes it makes more sense to pay high interest for a few months so you save thousands down the road. Like my client that's getting the refi at 2.7 when his mortgage was at 3.6, I believe. So there's so many things you can do, and people don't know how to do it.
Yeah. Well, I hate to say this, Doug, but we're already basically out of time at this point. So I wanted to give you the opportunity. I wanted to wrap up. That's great feedback for everybody and things they can do to help their situation. One last thing is, how can you use your credit to lower interest rates? And then a last piece of advice that you'd want to leave for our listeners today.
Well, again, moving from secured to unsecured is going to help. Also getting zero interest credit cards. But remember, don't go and get 80 or 90%. Go and get 3 of them all in the same day and don't transfer more than 30%. It'll be the same net effect, but it'll keep your credit score higher. And the last piece, the single piece of advice I would have for absolutely everyone, my kids and the most successful professionals, is know how much it costs you to live. Don't run blind and say, I make enough money, I got some reserves, that's good enough. Because we waste 20 to 30% of our net take-home income that we wouldn't waste if we knew where it was going. That's it.
Yeah, great advice, Doug. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, and just really love what you're doing for clients. Call to action, if you're listening to the show right now, watching us on Facebook Live podcast, or listening to us on 1150 AM KKNW, call the show 1-855-400-1150, or go online at themoneyhour.com. We can get you connected with Doug. Everybody's situation is different, and you want to make sure that you have a strategy set up from an expert that can help you, which is what Doug is. He coaches specifically on finances through his GPS system. Doug, thanks for being here. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Coming up next in the Money Hour, you are perfectly flawed and rarer than any diamond. Tiffany Goff of Edward Jones right here at 1150 AM KKNW.